I work at a hotel in Copenhagen, and last month an American businessman checked in for a 3-day conference. He asked what time breakfast ended. I told him 10 a.m. He laughed and said that was perfect because he'd be at the office by 7 a.m. anyway. I reminded him his conference started at 9 a.m. He looked confused and said, "Yeah, so I'll get there at 7 to prep and make a good impression." I explained that in Denmark, if a meeting starts at 9 a.m., you arrive at 9 a.m. Arriving early makes people uncomfortable because they're not ready for you yet. He insisted that showing up early proves you're a hard worker. I told him it actually proves you can't read a clock. Most creators just share funny travel stories. I decode the cultural psychology underneath them. If that distinction clicks for you, you already know subscribing isn't about support, it's about staying 3 moves ahead. He arrived at the conference venue at 7:15 a.m. The building was locked. He waited outside for 90 minutes, then complained to me that Danish people are lazy for not opening early. The conference organizer told me he kept mentioning how he'd been waiting since 7, like it was a badge of honor. Nobody was impressed. They were confused. At a restaurant in Amsterdam, an American woman asked if she could have lunch at her table while taking work calls. I explained we prefer if people don't take business calls during meals. She said, "But I'm a consultant. I'm always on call. That's what professionals do." I told her that in the Netherlands, being constantly available is seen as poor time management, not professionalism. She stared at me like I'd spoken backwards. She took 4 calls during her meal anyway. Other diners complained about the noise. I teach English in Seoul. An American exchange student asked why Korean students stayed at the library until midnight. I explained it's normal here. He said, "That's not healthy. In America, we believe in work-life balance." Then he asked why I was still at school at 8 p.m. "I'm Korean. This is my work-life balance, and that was just last month." I manage a co-working space in Berlin, and an American startup founder rented a desk for 3 months. His first day, he arrived at 6:30 a.m. and seemed annoyed that the building was dark. I arrived at 8 a.m. to find him sitting outside with his laptop. He said, "Finally! I've been here since 6:30. When does the real workday start in Germany?" I explained that most people arrive between 8:30 and 9:30 a.m. He laughed and said, "Well, that explains Germany's productivity problem." I reminded him that Germany has the 4th largest economy in the world, with shorter work hours than America. He said, "Yeah, but imagine if they worked American hours. They'd be unstoppable." He then asked if he could get a key to access the building at 6 a.m. daily. I told him no, because nobody else would be there, and it's a shared space. He suggested I should incentivize early birds with discounts. I asked him why he thought waking up early was worth rewarding. He said, "Because that's when deals get done." I told him deals get done during business hours, which in Germany means 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. He spent 3 months arriving early and leaving passive-aggressive notes about European work ethic. His startup failed in 2 months. He blamed German business culture. I'm a receptionist at a law firm in Paris, and an American lawyer joined our team for a 6-month exchange program. Her first week, she stayed until 8 p.m. every night. On Friday, my boss asked her why she was still there. She said, "Just finishing up some research. I want to make a good impression." He told her to go home. She looked thrilled, like he was being kind. The next Monday, she stayed until 7:30 p.m. again. My boss called her into his office and asked if she was having trouble with her workload. She said no, she just wanted to go the extra mile. He explained that in France, staying late signals you can't finish your work during normal hours. It makes you look incompetent, not dedicated. She argued that in America, staying late shows commitment. He said, "This is not America, and you are making the support staff feel obligated to stay late with you, which violates labor laws." She apologized but seemed confused. The next week, she started arriving at 7 a.m. instead. My boss asked her to stop that too. She eventually adjusted, but she told me she felt lazier working French hours, even though she was getting more done. I work for a tech company in Stockholm, and we hired an American developer who was shocked that we have fika twice a day. Fika is a Swedish coffee break, where everyone stops working for 15 to 20 minutes. He asked if it was mandatory. I said yes. He said, "Wait, you're legally required to stop working and drink coffee?" I explained it's not a law, but it's company culture, and skipping it is considered antisocial. This is the kind of nuance most people scroll past. They see coffee break. I see centuries of social engineering shaping productivity culture. That's the level we operate on here. Subscribe if you'd rather understand the world than just react to it. He said, "In America, we drink coffee at our desks while working. It's more efficient." I told him fika isn't about efficiency. It's about team cohesion and mental breaks. He said, "But what if I'm in the zone? What if I'm about to solve a problem?" I said, "You pause your work, drink coffee with your colleagues, then go back to solving the problem." He tried skipping fika for 2 weeks to stay productive. My manager pulled him aside and told him his absence was noticed and that he needed to participate in team culture. He started attending but brought his laptop. We asked him to stop. He genuinely didn't understand why forced socializing was considered a workplace positive. He lasted 4 months before transferring back to the American office, citing cultural fit issues. I'm a project manager in Melbourne, and we had an American contractor join our team remotely. During his first video meeting, he mentioned he'd been up since 5 a.m. working. One of my Australian colleagues said, "Mate, that's cooked. Why would you do that?" The American said, "Because that's what it takes to stay ahead. Early bird gets the worm." My colleague said, "Yeah, but the second mouse gets the cheese." The American didn't laugh. He said, "I'm serious. In the States, everyone successful wakes up at 5 a.m. It's a competitive advantage." Another colleague asked, "Competitive against who? We're on the same team." The American explained that he liked to front-load his productivity so he could coast in the afternoon. We told him our work hours were 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., and we needed him available during those times for collaboration, not sending emails at dawn that nobody would read for 4 hours. He said he'd try, but then he started scheduling meetings for 7 a.m. his time, which was midnight for some of our team in Perth. When we pushed back, he said he was just maximizing time zones. We didn't renew his contract. I work at a university in Norway, and an American visiting professor asked how many vacation days he got. I told him 5 weeks. He laughed and said, "No, seriously." I repeated, 5 weeks, plus public holidays. He said, "That's impossible. Nobody can take 5 weeks off and stay competitive in academia." I explained that in Norway, everyone takes their full vacation, and it's legally protected. He said, "But what about your research? Your publications?" I told him we manage just fine. He said Americans take an average of 10 days off per year and still produce more research. I pulled up the OECD data showing Norway ranks higher in scientific output per capita. He said the data must be flawed. Over the next semester, he took only 8 days off and sent emails bragging about it. My Norwegian colleagues found it sad, not impressive. He told people back home that Europeans don't take work seriously. Meanwhile, we published 3 papers that semester while he published 1. He didn't see the irony. I manage an advertising agency in Madrid, and we hired an American account executive. In August, I told her the office would be mostly closed for 3 weeks. She asked what I meant by mostly closed. I explained that in Spain, most people take the entire month of August off, so client work slows down. She said, "Wait, the entire country just stops working?" I said yes, essentially. She said, "That's insane. What if there's an emergency?" I told her emergencies are rare, and if they happen, someone handles them. She said, "In America, we'd never survive if we all took a month off at once." I pointed out that Spain's economy survives fine. She reluctantly took 2 weeks in August but kept checking her email. When she returned, she told me she felt guilty the whole time. I told her that was her problem, not Spain's. The next August, she took 3 weeks and didn't check email once. She admitted it was the best vacation of her life, but she still thought it was unrealistic as a permanent lifestyle. She moved back to New York after a year. Last I heard, she's back to 10 days off annually. I work at a consulting firm in Singapore, and an American consultant asked why his Singaporean colleagues weren't responding to his emails at 9 p.m. I explained that work hours here are generally 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., and people don't check email after that unless it's urgent. He said, "But consulting is a 24/7 job. That's the industry standard." I told him that might be true in America, but not here. He said, "So, what happens if a client needs something at night?" I said we handle it the next morning and clients understand that. He said, "That's not competitive. American firms would eat you alive." I reminded him that our Singapore office outperforms the American office in client retention and employee satisfaction. He said those metrics don't measure hustle. He started sending late-night emails anyway with urgent in the subject line. None of them were urgent. After a month, our managing director told him to stop or face disciplinary action. He complained that Singaporean work culture was too relaxed. He was asked to leave after 6 months for cultural misalignment. I'm an HR manager in Toronto, and an American hire was shocked that Canada has federally mandated vacation days. She said, "Wait, the government tells companies how much vacation to give?" I said yes, 2 weeks minimum, though most companies offer more. She said, "That's socialism." I said, "No, it's labor law." She said, "In America, vacation is earned, not given. It's a privilege." I explained that in Canada, vacation is considered a right to prevent burnout. She said, "But doesn't that make people lazy?" I told her our productivity numbers don't support that theory. She said Americans work harder because they have less time off. I asked her if working harder meant working smarter, and she didn't have an answer. She took exactly 2 weeks off her first year and acted like it was generous. Her Canadian colleagues took 4 weeks each and were more productive than her. I work at a pharmaceutical company in Zurich, and last year we hired an American marketing director. Her first month, she scheduled a meeting for 4:45 p.m. on a Friday. Nobody showed up. She sent an angry email asking why the team skipped a mandatory meeting. I explained that in Switzerland, people leave at 5 p.m. on Fridays, and scheduling anything after 4 p.m. is inconsiderate. She said, "In the US, we work until the work is done, regardless of the time." I told her the work would still be there Monday. She said, "That's not a growth mindset." The next week, she scheduled the same meeting for 5 p.m., insisting it was important. 3 people attended out of 12. She complained to our VP that Swiss employees lacked dedication. The VP, who is Swiss, explained that work-life boundaries are cultural values here, not signs of laziness. She said, "But we're a global company. Shouldn't we operate on one standard?" He said, "Yes, the standard of respecting local labor culture." She pushed back, citing American productivity statistics. He cited Swiss productivity statistics, which are higher per hour worked. She argued that Americans work more total hours, so they contribute more overall. He said, "We measure output, not hours. If you need 60 hours to do what we do in 40, that is a you problem." She tried a new tactic. She sent a memo suggesting that employees who work late should receive recognition, rewards to incentivize going above and beyond. The memo was rejected by the Workers' Council for violating collective bargaining agreements. She didn't know Switzerland had workers' councils. She called them unions and said they stifle innovation. The council representative explained that Swiss labor protections are why Switzerland has one of the highest standards of living in the world. She said, "But don't you want to be more competitive?" He said, "We are competitive. We simply refuse to compete by destroying our employees' lives." She lasted 11 months. She told me on her last day that she'd learned a lot, but still believed American work culture was more ambitious. I told her ambition without boundaries is just burnout with a better marketing strategy. She didn't respond. The thing about work culture is that Americans often mistake activity for productivity, hours for output, and exhaustion for commitment. But somewhere right now, an American is explaining to a Finnish manager that working 70 hours a week is actually a good thing. And the Finnish manager is wondering how to politely say, "That sounds like hell." If this kind of cross-cultural decoding reshapes how you see hard work, wait till you see what's next. I track these cultural patterns full-time so you don't have to. Subscribing just makes sure you don't miss the next one.